I want to say thanks to everyone for joining us on this version of our Decibel Arts and Entertainment Festival. It's brought us by Republic Bank. So I'm really happy that they still got involved to help us produce this event. It's different this year. It's no longer the physical version that we know of. Otherwise, Caleb would have been with us in Trinidad and Tobago. Uh, this is the version where we're all at home trying to figure out what the hell happened in 2020, right? But obviously, uh, we're glad to make this thing possible. And Caleb, I mean, obviously, I'm going to let you let everyone know exactly who you are rather than me, butcher your biography. I've known you through my connection. Uh, Sorry, I've known you through my connection with Scott Sardina, who is like a brother to me. And I've been very grateful for all the Overbrook connections and Westbrook connections I've gotten out of that. I've looked up to you. I think that you just have such an amazing career, and really glad that you're here with us today. So if you can, man, could you just give everyone, our audience, an idea of what you've been through, in terms of being able to get to this point, where you're at today in filmmaking.
Well, yeah, it's a pleasure to be here with you guys, and it's a double pleasure in the sense of being able to speak to a lot of people that look like all of us on this feed. So that's a blessing within itself. But I'll say for me, as far as this career, I had an opportunity that a lot of people wouldn't have because my family is in the business, right? So my sister is Jada, and Jada coming up into this industry, it made it where it was less of something that was like far-fetched and like a dream and like couldn't happen, when you're actually seeing it happen with somebody that and have watched grow, and all the work that it took for them to reach a certain place. You saw that and you know that it's real. So just the fact of knowing that something is real does something different for you as far as your preparation, to be ready for those types of opportunities when they come. Because if somebody thinks of something as a dream, they may not try as hard. They may not work as hard. They may get to a point where they're tired or think this will never happen, and they slack off. But when you know that it's real, you continue working in those areas. So I think there's a lot of blessing that comes with just knowing that it can happen and that it's real. I'll say for myself, as far as my experience has been, it has been a lot of work, right? Like, you have to love this. I understand that there are perks that come with working in the industry, where you get to make more money. You could become famous. You can travel the world. You can do all of these things, which are great within themselves. But you really have to love it, because there's so much work that goes into it and so much stress that happens with it. So like, there was an old rap record back in the day, and it's old now, but it was in my prime as when I was 17 years old. The Notorious B.I.G., Biggie Smalls, had a record that came out that said, "More money, more problems," right? And people are like, "Oh, that's not like, oh, I wish I had those problems." It's like, yeah, right up until you do, right? So like, what I mean is, so like right now in America, in my country, we're dying over this coronavirus. It's like, oh my God, it's the worst thing ever, right? And it's like, there's people out here that are like, well, it's not true, it's a hoax, so it's not that serious. And of course it's not serious when you're not sick, but the second you get it, or somebody in your family gets it, now it's the most serious thing in the world, right? So I say all that to say back to my analogy of entertainment, it's always, it seems like it's the greatest thing ever. It seems like, oh, it's easy, or like, yes, I wish for that. But there's so many other things that come with it that you may not. And when I say you, I don't mean you literally. I just mean you in the sense of the world, that there's other aspects that come with it that you may not understand or have took into account before you decide that this is something that you want to do. So that's why I say, the first and foremost, you have to love it. You have to love to tell stories. 1000%. If you're starting there, then you're already ahead of half.
Right. I mean, you know, it's always, I guess, for us. I'm sitting down here with a group of fellow filmmakers who've been through a lot. And the thing is, hearing you speak, the reality is that this business also comes down to opportunity and who you know, right? And the fact is that I know that the Caribbean, Trinidad and Tobago included, we have a lot of talent, and there's some of us who've been in this for a while. And the fact is, none of that feels like it makes a difference unless you have a connection, right? Unless you have someone that can pull you up, because it's all about who can help you get further. So there are probably a lot of questions that I know we should ask, because it's just part of hey, you know, what does it take to become a producer? But we've been through all that as filmmakers here in this room, right? And I guess I'm going to pass it over to some of my fellow associates, because I think that, yes, that's important for our audience to know. But what I really want to find out is, from their perspective, what they may want to get out of this connection with you in terms of answers, because we don't have the answers, it feels, you know, or I should say better than that is, we know what we need to do, right? But it requires funding, right? It requires, you know, the ability to have someone who can introduce you to the right executive producer or distributor.
That does not exist in Trinidad.
Right.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So, I mean, you definitely have and it's not just Trinidad. You guys just produced Sprinter, right? With out of Jamaica, right? So, I mean, the fact is that, you know, we have stories to tell, you know, and we know we have the talent to film it. But we always seem to get to that stage where, you know, we do all the work, we put in all the effort, and then boom, what's missing is that connect. So I guess, I mean, maybe I'll go to Danielle first. Danielle has been in this industry for more than 20 years. I know she currently sits as a board member for the Trinidad and Tobago Film Festival. Is that right? Yeah. And basically, as a writer, producer, and director, do you maybe, I know this isn't a therapy session, it's not meant to be that, but I do want us to kind of talk about what we're going through, and maybe you can guide us. I don't know if that's the right word, but suggest from where you sit, you know, what you've done to get over the hump, or how you've helped others do that. I mean, if that's cool.
Who's that? Me you're talking to?
Yes, Daniel.
What hump did I get over again? Yeah. Well, I think for me, it's been just tenacity, and pig-headedness, and what we call in Trinidad bad mind, where, you know, I am not going to be defeated, and therefore I'm going to do this, and I will get it done. Because everything that you said, yes, Simon, you know, you always have to have somebody helping you along. And I have had people along the way who have not so much helped, but shown me the way that it is possible. You can do this in Trinidad. And granted, the circumstances in which they did it don't exist anymore. And so, you know, when I decided I'm jumping in this field, and I thought it was going to be, I didn't think it was going to be easy. And I knew it was going to be an investment in my time and energy. And I never thought that I would get, you know, loads of money here right away. I just figured it'll pay off sometime, you know, all this work is good for something. A lot of what I did in the initial stages, and yes, I've been in the business for like 30 years. That is my son, the gamer, who is having a game right now. So excuse the noise. Max, hush. Right. But when I initially started and launched in my direction, it was basically on the goodwill of people. I basically begged people to work for free. And so that we would have a product that we could put out there and that somebody might see it and think it's worth investing in. And it took us 2 years for one person in my first drama project for people to actually say, hey, yeah, that thing you were doing. Hold on, let me tell this boy to hush. Max!
Danielle.
Yeah. Sorry, everybody around the world.
It's okay.
Yeah, motherhood and this business.
Absolutely.
What a thing. Yeah, so a lot of the times, the initial stages, I basically did it with the goodwill of people. And it's been a struggle ever since, because I can't tell you it was easy the next time around. And I basically did 6 seasons of a drama series, 100 half-hour episodes. And every single time I did a season, it was as if I was doing it for the first time. And now, 20 years later, I'm trying to do a new series, and it's as if I'm doing it for the first time. So sorry, I couldn't have better news for everybody. So yeah, in our case, it's basically trying to convince people that our stories are valid, one, to tell, two, that it's not just for Trinidad, because, I mean, with my series, I had pretty much success throughout the Caribbean, but beyond the Caribbean shores, like we had Nigeria pirated. So people in Nigeria saw it, thanks to the pirates. We actually officially distributed to Papua New Guinea. We've distributed to parts of North America, Canada. So it's not just that our stories are for our people only. It's our stories for everyone. Just as we consume American stories, I believe that everybody can consume ours. But our problem is getting it out there and distributing it. So I don't actually sit on the film festival board. I sit on the board of Film Co, which is a collaborative of, basically formed by myself and 3 other people who just decided that, I mean, we've tried many times before, but finally formed a body of people, of filmmakers, basically, to help each other and to distribute our content. So that's where I sit on the board of, and basically because I understand that people anywhere in the world will consume our stories. We just have to get it done. And our problem has always been distribution and getting it funded.
Let me take this, use that as a segue for Caleb to answer the question, because what I want to find out, Caleb, is it was important to hear Danielle's story in a sense, because one of the things that we want to know is how our struggles aren't much different to your struggles, and you have connections, you're in it. Is there anything that you can tell us in terms of familiar things that you've gone through in terms of producing? Because everyone's going to assume it's Caleb, right? He has these links. It's going to be easy for him to make this happen. Could you maybe wipe out this misnomer that exists and let us know what you do?
Well, I think for the most part, the struggle that you're experiencing, Danielle, is the same thing that everybody in the industry deals with. And I'm taking ethnicity included, right? Meaning white filmmakers go through the same thing. And what I mean is there's only a certain amount of money and there's only a certain amount of things that can be made every year, right? So there's that as far as what the industry itself will pay for. But then there are stories and there's things that people would call a smaller market, right? So if you have something that they consider as a smaller market, now you have to have a story that connects to the larger whole, right, of the world. So it doesn't matter if your protagonist, your main character in your story, the antagonist, the villain, whatever. It doesn't matter what it is that they're after or where it takes place. It all matters about who they are and what's the thing they're trying to achieve and what's the obstacles against it. Those things right there are the paramount pillars that actually make an idea come to fruition, right? The location, the ethnicity of the people, all that is icing on the cake. Right now, because of the times that we're in, as far as the world is concerned, with as far as like what I mean is, we all know, like the Black Lives Matter movement. What it's doing is it's putting Black filmmakers and Black stories to the forefront. Now, even if a Black story is terrible, a white executive can't say it's terrible because they'll get fired. You know what I mean? It's like, they gotta act like it's fucking good, right? So what I'm saying is, it's like the opportunity is now to tell the stories that we've always wanted to tell. Not saying that they're not good, but what I mean is that even the ones that aren't good are not going to be told that they're not. So imagine if you have something that's halfway decent. Imagine if you have something that's actually good. You know what I mean? Streaming has changed the industry. Before, you had to come to Hollywood. You had to get Warner Brothers, Sony, Paramount, Disney, Fox, whatever, to make your movie. Now, you don't have to. You only need a streaming company. Netflix can make it. Amazon can make it. Hulu can make it, right? And the thing about streaming is that they do territories. So it's based on the amount of subscribers that they have in each territory. So Mexico is a big territory for Netflix and Amazon. So is Brazil, Central America, right? How do you make Trinidad a valuable piece for what it is that they're making, to where they'll start making content specifically for Trinidad, which is what they do. Amazon makes stuff specifically for Brazil. I know, I have a show with Amazon Brazil. You know what I mean? They make stuff specifically for the Brazilian audience, done in Portuguese for that demographic. You know what I mean? They can do the exact same thing for Trinidad. They can do the same thing for the Caribbean, right? So now the idea is, what are the stories? What are the things that the Caribbean experience has that is distinctly Caribbean that you can tell, so it's honest for what you want to express, but at the same time, it's universal, right? So for example, you take something like Goodfellas, right? So Goodfellas was a movie that Martin Scorsese made about Henry Hill, who was doing business with the Lucchese family, if I'm not mistaken, and could never be a made man because he was half Italian, half Jewish. And it's his story, right? But it's specific Italian American, right? It's not, Black people aren't really involved except for Stax, the Sam Jackson character, who fell asleep on the job, which got him killed, right? Right. But the idea being, it's for a specific audience. But because it was honest to a human experience, everybody else who's not Italian American, whose uncle isn't in the mob, don't have no connection to that, could understand, and not only understand, but enjoy. And even past enjoying, root for the characters to succeed, right? So the same thing happened with Do the Right Thing, Spike Lee with Brooklyn. Same thing with what John Singleton did with Boys in the Hood. He took LA gangbanging, made something very specific to a certain audience. Even Black people in New York didn't never experience that. You know what I mean? So it's like, to tell a story that's specific to a certain area, but be honest to it and find a human emotional connection. That is what makes it bigger. And when it's specific to a certain audience, other people want to be involved with it. You know what I mean? It's the same thing that like ratchet hip hop gets. Or take that out. What reggae does. for whatever reason, Bob Marley can make a record and people in London, England are like, oh my God, mate, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful song. It's a record that talks about the life and existence of mankind. And Bob is just saying, no woman, no cry. You know what I'm saying? So like I go back to make what's specific and honest for you, but don't forget that there's certain universal truths that overcome ethnicity. And I say ethnicity as opposed to race because there's only one race, and that's the human race. But we are different ethnicities. So I'm going to say there's a different experience that comes with your ethnicity. But the truth about the human existence is honest. If I open a movie in Mandarin and it opens on a funeral, you don't have to speak Mandarin to know what the hell the characters are going through. If I open on a wedding, you don't have to speak Spanish to know what is happening. If I open on a birth of a child, you don't have to speak Russian to understand what's happening and what the people could possibly be saying with the joy in their faces at the birth of this new child. So be honest to the stories that you want to tell, that are honest to what you know, but do not ever forget the human connection and the dialogue that comes with the emotional recognition, if that makes any sense, right? Like there's certain things that happen in our lives as humans that you do not have to speak the same language to understand. And when you understand those ideas deeply and profoundly, you'll be able to deliver whatever it is that you want, exactly the way that you want to deliver it. And everybody else will be able to understand and take it in. But I would say, as far as distribution and finding money to tell stories, streaming. Streaming companies are the only places that do business for territories, like specific for real. If you have a story that's strictly for South Korea, Netflix has a certain amount of people that you can go pitch to, right? So the Caribbean is an area that has plenty of history and story that it could tell that is specific to its region and honest, but also universally appealing. And I would say approach it from that dynamic.
Let me ask this, because telling stories, for example, and I'll turn it over to Maya. Maya is a writer-director. She recently, I say recently, but Maya, you could correct me on this, She Paradise was selected to have its world premiere at the Tribeca Film Festival, right?
Yeah.
So I think you were, well, that was this year? Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
It was supposed to happen this year, but with COVID, it got cancelled. So the film hasn't premiered yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
You want to talk maybe about, address some of the points that Caleeb brought up? I would assume you agree in what he's saying as well, and we're sharing.
Yeah, definitely. I think, especially, being a filmmaker in the Caribbean and, along the same line of having access to resources, I think the stories that feel the most accessible to us are very personal and sort of honest stories. So I made She Paradise on a very micro budget, and it's set in Trinidad around the world of dance, and it has a very heavy backdrop with soca music, but it tells a story about a young teenage girl who has a desire to fit in and sort of find her own voice. And she does this against her grandfather's wishes. Things spiral out of control, and she has this very sort of teenage journey that a lot of people can relate to, regardless of whether or not they're from the Caribbean. And I thought that point you brought up about telling stories that are universal and that could connect to people regardless of where we are geographically. But I also I'm thinking a lot of for filmmakers down here, and you know, the lack of resources can be discouraging for a lot of us. And something that I went through when I graduated from film school, I spent about 2 or 3 years not really making anything because I had no budget to shoot a film. And how I stayed active as a writer director was developing a screenplay. So I would spend hours on end researching, talking to people, Skyping my friends because I went to film school in New York, Skyping my friends in New York to develop a screenplay. And that's how I stayed active, and that cost $0. It's something that I was able to sit down at home and do on my laptop. So I think, you know, the filmmakers that are looking right now, do you have anything, sort of any advice for us in terms of like developing screenplay ideas, and also like the process of writing a screenplay and getting it noticed by a producer?
Yeah, what I'll say is the way that you did it is the way that you want to. Like, take advantage of technology to spend the least amount of money that you can. Here's the unavoidable truth that everybody's going to have to deal with. When you create your own ideas, you're investing in yourself. So that means you're going to spend all the time that it would take you to make $100 million at a company to make one screenplay for yourself. The difference is you're believing in what it is that you are doing. You have to tell your stories. And when you tell us, and when you're writing a story, write it. Just write it. Write it. The same way that you always heard fairy tales told to you. Once upon a time in a land far, far away, in a time long, long ago, there was a girl, there was a boy, there was a frog, right? Tell your story, because what will happen is you'll do one draft that will lead to another draft and will lead to another draft. Here's the other thing that we don't like to do. We have to expose ourselves, meaning you got to let other people read it. You got to pitch people your idea at least. They won't always, this is scary, because they won't always have the, they won't always say the things we want them to say. Oh my God, it's the greatest thing ever. Citizen Kane, it's the best. Oh my God, I can't believe you made this. That's what we want to hear as creators, but that may not always be the answer. So we have to be able to take creative criticism to help make us be better. The pain of feeling like something you believed in or thought worked doesn't is horrific. Trust me, it's part of my existence. I live it. So because of that pain, we don't like to feel pain as humans. We avoid pain at all costs. So that will allow us to keep our stuff inside and not share it. But if we don't share it, we'll never get the other things. We'll never find the gems that we need to improve, right? No matter what we create, it always can be better. Always, right? So it is, what I would say is bet on yourself. Don't ever let nobody tell you that you can't do it, because of course you can. So there's that. Then what is the story that you would love to tell? If you was as good as a writer as Eric Roth, if you could write what Stephen King writes and all of these great writers, if you could write like them, what would it be? And then start working towards that. That is how I would say doing it for yourself. Lack of resources, lack of opportunity, all of that is part of our existence. That's why you're seeing all these riots happen in America right now. As good as everybody thought Black Americans had it, it's still bad enough to where Black people feel they need to riot in the streets. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, it's always a progress. There's always a process to go through. But if you are a creator, you can't help but do what you love. Like, if you're a true creator, no matter how hard it gets, there's nothing else you're gonna do. You'll be mad, you'll cuss when you have a drink, you'll talk shit, you say, I quit, I'm gonna do something else, and you know your ass ain't going nowhere. You know this is exactly what you wanna do, and you're gonna suffer whatever the pain it takes to get there. And when you're in that space, when you recognize you're there, That's how you know you're for real. That's how you know you're a real artist. And then you just dig it out, because all you need is one. All you need is one project, one thing that you create or that you're a part of that is halfway decent, that people say, it wasn't bad, I kind of like that. And you're in. You don't need a hit. You don't need everybody to say, oh my God, it's the greatest thing ever. You don't need nobody to say that. All you need is people to say, it wasn't bad. It's okay. That is your career. That starts your career. That's all you need, you know? So I would say, bet on yourself. Believe that you can be that voice, or that you have the understanding that the world is missing. Because if you don't believe it, ain't nobody else gonna believe it. So you might as well be the one to believe that you have it, that you have the ability, that you are what you say you are.
But it's difficult, because you have a situation where, I mean, it always feels like as a creative, you have all these things stacked against you, right?
Yes.
And now kind of shifting to Ryan. I mean, Ryan is part of a group of young creatives who have been making everything from music videos to short films. I know, Ryan, you have peers within the business, Oliver Milne, Romano Francois, you know, there's so many different guys you can call out. Is there something specific in regards to those platforms that you use that you recognize the relevance of what's being said, but it almost feels like, you know, there's that frustration that builds up constantly in terms of doing this profession? And how do you get over it?
Well, especially in Trinidad, this profession is really not the easiest, because I've literally been on projects where, you tell people call time is whatever time, and just you. They have literally done scenes as this myself, in student films especially. They don't come. People like the idea of film, but actually doing film is not for everyone. They see the red carpets and they think, glamorous life, this is what they want. But they like watching movies, not making movies. It's two different things. It's two different things, right? But I think locally, we just need to make more content. And I know that sounds easy to say, but it's harder to do because funding obviously is a problem. So you tend to find in Trinidad and Tobago that people would wear multiple hats. So I've worked on Maya's film, I've worked on Ollie's, I've done many different things. But directing is what I really want to do. This lockdown has kind of put things in perspective. So whereas before, I would always kind of like try to write the perfect script, and I'm like, I'll do this next week, and I'll keep pushing on because I have another project working on somebody else's story. But then with this lockdown, we formed a group. Maya's actually in that group, a writing group, where we just kind of bounce ideas. We call every week, and we would you just want to read everyone's story, so kind of give everyone feedback where you're going wrong, what you think we could do better. And yeah, it's disheartening when your story doesn't work out, or and people might tell you that you could have any money in that. How are you making a living off of that? You could eat food, you could go in the grocery with that. But when you're doing it for a living and you love it, there's no looking back, as you said, Caleb. But my point being, I'm working on one right now, and hopefully it's good. But I think with this lockdown that we have all these resources. If you want to write, just tell it. The most important thing is getting out there, telling your stories. Make groups. Find somebody online. You have friends all over. Tell your story as much as you could. Like if I go out now, I would just find my closest friend. Hey, you want to hear the story? And just tell your story. And every time you tell your story, it gets better and better and better.
But it leads to a really good question, Ryan, and that is maybe, Caleb, how do you go about, how do executives like yourself go about finding new talent? Because maybe that's part of what it is. So I know there have been situations where you've described to me in the past, for example, you met this guy who took previews, like trailers from movies, and cut it together and built a story, and then that was sent to you, and it was so creative that this guy was like undeniable, and boom, you call him in to have an interview. Like, what is that? What would you suggest? What's that process for you to discover, someone that's new?
I mean, it would be creating your story. Like just the example that you were using, that guy was creative to tell his story, creative enough to tell his story with clips of other movies, right? So it's not the people in the trailer aren't connected. It's the idea is connected, right? Which is the most important thing when you're making a movie. This person was able to tell a story without the same characters, basing it on an idea. That's what I mean by knowing your story to that level, right? Knowing what it is that you want to tell. And also, here's the thing. Humans respond to certain things. Certain things humans aren't going to respond to. Certain things humans will. We know that. Violence, gang stuff, sexual things, parties, all that kind of stuff, drugs, whatever. Those things are exciting. That grabs human attention. Okay, great. So what is the story that may have some of those things in it so it gives the people what they want? Lauryn Hill said something really intelligent years ago in one of her songs. And I'm going to say it. She uses a curse word. But what she said is, she said, I'll add a mother so you ignorant can hear me, right? That shit was so brilliant, right? So what she's saying is, I'll dumb down what I need to say just so the people I want to reach can hear me. Because if I say it too intelligently, y'all won't listen, right? So you may have to tell a story in a world that you deem as beneath you, or I don't want to glorify that, or I don't want to bring attention to that. Okay, but that might be the world that your story needs to be in order to get the attention you're trying to get from it. You see what I'm saying? It's like when you see a movie like City of God, it deals with all the negative attributes that happen in the favelas of Brazil. But the story is not about a dude in the favelas. It's not about little Z. It's about the reporter, about the kid who wants to do something else with his life, but this is the world that he's subjected to. So it made people say, damn, right? That's the kind of stuff you want to be able to do. Do not forget for 1 second that storytelling is not like music, in the sense you got to do the stuff people want to hear. You got to make movies people want to see. Don't nobody want to see no shit that ain't entertaining. Don't nobody, you know what I'm saying? It's like, it's like, don't nobody want to watch nothing that's not cool, that's not funny, that's not fun. You don't want to listen to nothing that don't sound good. You'll even listen to a song that you may not like what the person is saying, but because the beat is banging, and when they say what they say is right on time with that music, you'll throw your hands up and say, hey, right? It's the same thing. Don't forget we're human. Don't forget we're simple. There's certain things we like, and that it will always be that way. So don't ever be so smart you're stupid, where you forget what people like because you're trying to be on this next level. You know what I mean? You're trying to go here and here and here and here and here. It's like, connect with this first, then rise it. Connect with this first, then rise it, right? So think about the things that grab humans quickly and tell your story from that perspective. And then take people on the journey.
Let's go back a little bit. You mentioned that you got a film. I don't know if it was a film or series, so you have to forgive me, on Netflix Brazil, right?
Yes.
Right. Could you?
It's a TV show. Yeah.
A TV show. Okay. Could you walk us through that process in terms of, you know, what we would have to do to get to that point of being able to get a show? I'm just trying to understand.
No. So what happened was Netflix Brazil. So here was the deal. I mean, Amazon Brazil. Here's what happened on Amazon. There's so many Black people in Brazil, and there's no Black people on Brazilian TV for the most part. They were like, we have to make this change, right? We have to make this change. So I came up with an idea that I thought could work for Brazilian TV. I wanted to create the first Black Brazilian superhero that Black Brazilian kids that speak Portuguese could watch and be like, yeah, I like that. That's us, right? That's how it started. That's how it started. So what I would say is Trinidad has to make themselves more noticeable in the world. Do things, tell more stories, put out more podcasts, put more things to say, hey, we're here, right? Do those types of things, and the world will pay attention. Absolutely. Trinidad has an amazing demographic of people. I've met a woman that was Chinese, but she was from Trinidad and she spoke like Scotty. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? It was like, I'm like, yo, we don't know nothing. The world is so colorful. There's so many stories to tell. Scotty told me he would go out every morning and dive for lobsters when he was younger. And he would do that so much his dreads turned blonde, not because he bleached them, but because the salt water in the water and the sun beaming down, stuff like that, right? Just the type of life that island life is, and the mixture of the Caribbean with African, with Spanish, with white, with indigenous people, all of those things, those stories are relevant and should be told and are very specific and can be universal. The music, the style, you guys have Carnival in Trinidad, I've been told is the best in the world. Like, not just by Scotty, I'm talking about by people outside that have been like, hey man, you need to go to Carnival in Trinidad. I'm telling you right now, right? Okay. So you could tell a story about a kid that comes from the United States who comes to Trinidad for Carnival. And the story is about one weekend, 2 days in Carnival. And he has a friend that's from Trinidad who's going to help him out. You see what I'm saying? That's it. And what are the things he could go through? All of that, it becomes universal. You could put that in any language and people get it. They understand the shit he's most likely going to experience and what he'll be going through. So I would say we should be looking for things like that. Like, that's the stuff that's going to get people excited. Like, you can do those things. What are the things that are particular to Trinidad that you could tell a story about? Just the idea of Carnival just came to my mind just because it's a world event and people know about it, but you could talk about somebody's experience that weekend. They could be from Trinidad or not. Doesn't matter, but they're there. And the experiences, right? Like, those types of things are how you get your area into the forefront for people to start seeing it and think about it. Like, oh wow, Trinidad, I didn't know it was like that. Damn,
but Caleb, what if I told you we have those stories, right?
Yes.
We have those movies, right? And my question is, fine, we have the product already. How do we get the pipeline with Amazon, with Netflix, with Apple? Because now we have the product, the same thing that you're asking for, we have it. So how do we get it into their hands so that we can get it, streaming on their networks and their platforms?
There's always three ways. There's the social media aspect of just making noise for people to pay attention. There's also submitting into the film festivals and all of those things, which I'm sure you've done. And then there is reaching out directly to these streaming companies and speaking to their international division. Every streamer has an international division that deals with stories that are specifically for different demographics internationally. So that just means different countries. Every streamer has them. So you guys will be considered the Caribbean. There is a Caribbean section of Amazon, of Netflix, of Quibi, of Hulu, of Apple TV, everything, HBO Max, they all have them, right? And it is, I want to tell this story for this area. Here's what we have. It's that type of stuff, right? Putting the streamers' feet to the fire, because right now, because of the Black Lives Matter movement, everybody wants to make Black projects and things with Black people and want to tell honest Black stories. Well, the Caribbean is Black too. There's a lot of Black people in the Caribbean, and everybody that's Black ain't from America. And that's what needs to be shown and needs to be expressed, right? We're all the same people, all African descent, dropped off in different places. The Black people in Trinidad, the same as the Black people in Cuba and Puerto Rico and Panama and all of that. They just speak Spanish, we speak English. We're all the same people. So all these stories need to be told. And it is about making sure those stories can get to the people. And it is the international divisions at these streaming companies that handle those specific areas.
Yeah, and I think that there are a number of platforms or markets that, well, I know now with COVID it's different, but
yes,
that we could probably go and check them out and either set up a booth or there are those different ways. Are there any other questions that you're wanting to direct to Caleeb in terms of the story making process or distribution?
I had a question. I was wondering, all right, so you go ahead and you contact these streamers. Is there any traps to avoid, or what kind of deals can we expect with these streamers?
Well, at first, the deals won't be the size that you want them to be, because here's the truth. You have to build the area. So if the Caribbean, so say Netflix says, well, for the Caribbean, we only have 1 million subscribers, right? So to them, that's a low amount of people. Okay, cool. Well, I'm going to make a show that 80% of the people in the Caribbean are going to watch. Then what happens? Well, if you can get 80% of them to watch it, we'll make a sequel. You say, oh, okay, great, right? Well, then I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to make this one, and then I'm going to do this. And it's slowly building the viewership, because there's more than 1 million people in the Caribbean. But there may be only 1 million that are subscribing, because subscriber-based platforms, they want subscribers. That's how it's done, right? It is a business where if there is a market, we will be there. If there's not one, they're not going to be there. It's as simple as anything else in life, right? So the Caribbean you would want to have a good, strong base that you can pull from. If you could guarantee a certain amount of viewers are going to watch this thing, and then they do, you're going to get more stuff. And the more people watch, the more things they will make for that area, because it's making them money. That's the thing. It's like you got to invest in yourself. That's the only way to make it happen. And so I would say, absolutely start getting your areas to invest, to buy these streaming platforms, to get into buying memberships and subscriptions to these places. And once they see that, then they know they need to make content for that area.
Sounds good. You're on mute, Simon.
That mute button catches me every time. Maya, I know that we're wrapping up soon. I don't want to, keep Caleb back any longer than we need to. I want to get in a question from you and Daniel before we do a final.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just curious how all of this applies to the current moment we're in with everything happening with COVID-19. A lot of films, their theatrical releases have been completely cancelled. A lot of filmmakers who premiered just before COVID haven't had their films sold or found distribution platforms. Even for myself, I was supposed to premiere Tribeca and that got completely cancelled. So do you have like any sort of input in terms of like what the landscape is like on the distribution side and sales side of things with the current climate we're in?
Well, with the climate that we're in right now, especially for the United States, if it's not a tentpole movie, and when I mean tentpole, I mean like a Marvel movie, like Iron Man 8, Avengers 18, whatever that is, those are the only places, those are the only films that are premiering in movies, theaters, right? But streaming platforms are the savior for this right now. Streaming. I'm telling you right now. I know we all have dreams of grandeur and we want our movies in theaters and you want that big premiere, but that's not the way that the world is right now, and it's changing tremendously. And you can make a lot of money in streaming, right? And I would say look to streaming right now. Don't worry about your movie being in theaters. Dude, that's a thing of the past. If that's to happen, that's great. But that's not the focus right now. The focus is getting with streaming companies and showing that you have a viable product that can sell. Because anything that can sell, they're going to put out. That's the thing about capitalism. It doesn't matter what the content is. Honestly, the streamers don't really give a damn what the content is. They only care about the content if they think the content is what will get them more viewers. You know what I mean? Like, the only reason why black people are in because they think black people are what people want to see right now. The thing is, we always been what people want to see. What are you talking about? That's why we run entertainment. You know what I'm saying? So now it's just about finding the right stories to get the certain demographic that you want to bring out more. That's the key. That's what I would say it is right now. But again, I would say streaming. Go to Quibi, go to HBO Max, go to YouTube, go to Facebook, Instagram. They all have content channels now. You want to go to Netflix, you want to go to Amazon, you want to go to a Hulu, you want to go to all of them. And there's more coming out every day. Every day. Streaming is how we're going to get these art stories out. We just need the support of our people.
Yeah, definitely. And that goes for the Caribbean as well. I mean, we have this tendency that we don't really buy our stuff. We love something that's free. And it'd be nice.
Oh, absolutely.
Mentality,
Everybody does. But if you want to bring the Caribbean out, the Caribbean itself, and you guys aren't the only country in the Caribbean. There's a lot of them, places where people start buying these subscriptions, and I'm telling you, they're gonna want specific content solely for the Caribbean. That is how you do it. You have to make yourself a viable market. It's like how Black people did it by like not riding on the bus protest that Rosa Parks did. Black people not riding that bus hurt the bus company. They needed Black dollars. That was how they survived, even though they treated Black people like they were nothing, right? It's that sort of thing. When you can show that your dollar has value, they're gonna come and they'll make whatever stuff you guys want to make. That's the truth. You just have to become a commodity where they see the value in doing it.
Daniel, I want to get in one last question here from you and then do the courtesy of a wrap up. Is there something you want to specifically ask Caleb?
On the whole Netflix front, I have written to Netflix mainly to recognize the Caribbean as a territory, because we get lumped in with South America a lot. I look at a lot of Brazilian films because that's what they have that look like me. and I have written to them. So my question is, how do we get through the noise? Because I'm sure they get millions of emails every day from people all over the world asking, how can I get my film on? Or, you know, in our case, I wrote on behalf of all of us, you know, to recognize us as a territory, first of all. And then, of course, to say that, you know, we also have content that we would like to get onto Netflix. But of course, never heard back from them. You know, can't just walk up on their doorstep and say, hi, I need to see your international manager, even though I have a name. How do we get through the noise? And likewise, I have, like, my series is now going to be on 2 streaming platforms, on Roku, and then we're also, filmmakers, launching a streaming platform. And again, my fear is, how do we break through the noise? And of course, to get Caribbean people to pay for anything is also
well, I think that's a
challenge.
Question for Caleb.
So what I would what I would honestly say is, one is, you're right. The Caribbean has to be established as a viable territory. That's the one thing, right? If you guys are being brought in with South America or lumped in with that area, then what you have to do is you want to take a story that you have and really get all your people to be behind it, to push it, like to get it out there. Because all you need is the attention for people to see that you guys are being excluded from being able to tell your stories, right? It's like we're not being perceived as a viable area, and we are. Look at this story that we have, that we feel is an honest story that needs to be told, right? And you'll start getting the attention. Right now is the best time to do it. So if you contacted Netflix before, you should try it again. You might get a different response right now, because nobody wants to be seen in America as not supporting anything Black. Even if they don't want to, they don't want it. So what I'll say is, do that. Take that story, get it out there, reach out to everybody once again. Take advantage of the times, because these times are changing and times are different, and take advantage of them. But to your point that you were saying, I agree. The Caribbean needs to make itself known as a viable demographic or territory that has stories that need to be told, and they will come out.
Man, Caleb, you are an amazing motivational speaker, let me tell you. And I really want to say how appreciative we all are for the time that you took tonight to talk to us on July 4th weekend, no less. So, I mean, I know you probably had other plans, like staying at home, staying away from COVID.
Exactly. Yeah, it's all good, man. It was a pleasure speaking to you all, and I hope nothing but the best. And I want to see the Caribbean on the map as far as the storytellers and filmmakers that I know are there. Love to see it. Can't wait.
Well, I hope that in ending this conversation, Caleb, that we can find a way to welcome you as a resource, that in the future, perhaps we can send you our work, that you could perhaps be that pipeline for us, where you might see something and be like, you know what, you get it from Scotty, you get it from myself, or directly from any of these guys here, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna give this person a chance. I mean, I think that would be great to know, that you could be that connection that helps us get further.
1000%. Absolutely. Yes, sir. Would love to.
All right, brother. You take care. All the best to you and your family. To everyone who was on tonight, and to all our onlookers, thank you so much. Much love, and have a great Sunday night.
Thank you. You guys all too. Thank you all. Bye-bye.